Hello, Xin Chao. I've got some Ultegra 6510s. I believe I've had the 6500s before, and so this was like the kind of like an updated version of those ones. The shifting on these shifters are pretty nice. They're really solid. Definitely recommend these if you're looking for something in the 9-speed range. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to dismantle the levers, and we're going to see what we can open up. A little bit annoying on these flight decks is that you have this type of ribbon, which I'm going to have to probably take off from around about here inside the cover. But yeah, otherwise it should be kind of somewhat the same procedure as on other road shifters. But anyway, we're going to find that out. So let's begin. Let's begin on the free-speed side. So you're going to need to remove the cover, I presume, to take off that ribbon as mentioned. So I'm going to start lifting it up. Alright, got that off. So normally it's this cover here. You've got two screws to remove. Okay, that's come off. And if I remember, you have to kind of slide that through eventually when you're taking off the lever. You have to put it in this position. And next, we're going to have the little bolt here underneath to take off, so we can then remove the type of like little axle that goes through the lever there. So it's a number 2. Make sure you have something of decent quality to remove that, to avoid rounding it, because these in particular do get rusty. Okay, finally. Now we need to push that out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a circular object underneath to allow for the pin to go through, push out, and I'm going to use a little screw bit to go against it, and I'm going to tap it gently with a hammer. Alternatively, you can put this in an axle. And once that's protruding enough, I'm just going to grab a plier to put out the rest, and I'm going to hold the lever in place in case it pops out. It hasn't done yet. And now this should start releasing because there's a small little spring at the back. There you go. And to take off that ribbon now, we're going to slide it through the hole. And if you really don't care, you can just cut off this ribbon, in fairness, if you're not using the flight deck option. And so behind here you had that spring. You have little plastic barrels on each end. Okay, that's done. I'm going to pop that off. At the front, if yours is not broken, you have a tiny little screw there to remove. And it's come off. And before we go any further, make sure you release all the tension on the shifter itself. So the first object of this video will be, I guess, if you wanted to replace this arm, which I believe is removable on these. So there's another screw here that we need to take off. It's a plastic cover. And behind that plastic cover there was actually there's these little gold coloured like a spacer. Hold on, I'll put that on the side for now. So you've got a little spacer there. And on this spacer, actually, now I look closely, there's a kind of a very, very thin ridge going around it. And it looks like it's, so it gets stuck onto this part. I'm guessing that's what it's for. Anyway, so there's that little ring. And now we've got to the little nut. Let's remove the little nut there. So it's number 8. And I think there's some ball bearings, if I recall, like on I think it was on the Dura Ace. There. And behind there's another screw that we need to remove, and there's 2 tabs kind of holding the screw in place. So we're going to need to probably push back the tabs holding the screw in place. There's only 2, and then we can unscrew. I might need to get a knife. Yeah, I'm going to get a knife. You know what, I'm able to do it without the knife, so I'm going to just keep turning. In fact, the tabs are so tightly put against it, I couldn't get a knife behind it either. There you go. We'll bend those back after when we're putting it, assembling it. And now that we've done that, we should be able to start pulling it off. So I'm just gently moving up and down, and there you go. And there's a spring behind there. So as mentioned there's some sealed bearings. Good moment to grease that up if you're accessing this already. And we had that spring, so one tip of the spring was at that hole. I don't know where this other bit was holding on to at the back of the lever, but I think we'll figure that out fairly easily. And typically when removing this, you get little bits of cable wire that's broken off and actually fell inside the shifter. Now you can undo this shifter. I did it on another one going from the front, and I can tell you now it's a nightmare putting it back together, and I don't think I'll be doing that today. There's also this special kind of nut at the back here, so it's like a four-toothed bit that you need to kind of make. I just happen to have one, but yeah, it can actually fit there. So what we're going to do is we're going to undo that, and normally if you undo this, you can eventually swap out this other shifter lever arm fairly easily without having to really dismantle all the mechanism, though the mechanism isn't such a complicated thing if you do it from the back. Anyway, this might be very hard to release. I think I might get a plier to assist me. There you go, it's coming off. So if you're doing this, I would say try and avoid shifting, so that way everything stays in its original position. So one bit there's just come off, that's the plastic cover, that's normal, that was on the top here. Okay, that's come off. So now we can take off the the part that kind of mounts, holds it in place. There you go. And that should be, yeah, there's a little ring. We'll leave that on the side. And behind here there was a little spacer. So for reference, we have this this here like that. I think there's a returns. Okay, so now we're at the back of the shifter, or the mechanism anyway. So yeah, I mean, I don't think it's super complicated to undo this one. It looks fairly simple, but I'm not going to do that today. And now we're behind the smaller lever for the shifter. Again, if these are sticky, especially this one, moment to clean it. So you'll have a small little E-clip there to remove, and that should give you access to everything. One tip of that spring's pressed against this type of tab sticking up, and you'll have the other tip of the spring that going underneath the little pull. Yeah, and you also have the opportunity to lift up this lever from here. So you have one tip of the spring that's going to go as well on above this spring onto that tab, and this actually just comes off, and you have the other tip of the spring which is latched onto a tiny little hole right there on the lever. And now we can do that all in reverse. That pull there, you're going to want to have that reclined so that you can fit it on, and the pull is eventually going to go right there in front of that tooth on the sprocket. You might need something to assist you to do that while you're getting it over, because we need to obviously fit this above. I didn't need to, it's good. So we're going to have this plastic cover. I think I'll just put that now. I'm just going to add on a tiny bit of grease behind here. So we had the little ring, and that seats perfectly around the circle. There. I'm going to put a tiny bit of thread locker on this because there was some initially. And now we've got that special locking nut. So I'm just gently locking that in place. I don't think it wasn't that tight, so let's imagine that that's good now. Now before we start putting that lever on, actually I'm going to put some grease onto the back here, and you can add some onto your ball bearings inside there, since this is quite easily removable. So now we've got to work on this nightmare part, the spring. So the tip actually goes into the hole there at the back. Now I have not figured out a way of doing this in an easy way. Maybe there is something. Once you've got that in place, you're going to the other tip there that's going the opposite way. Needs to go behind this tiny little tab right there. So you're going to need to recline it. Now, how on earth you do that? There's no way of moving around in here. You can't move the lever about to be able to tension it, unlike on other shifters. You need to somehow grab it, and then you're going to need to pull it up from underneath and bring it towards here for it to work. So all I've got so far is a hook tool. I have no other suggestions. With a bit of patience, I've actually managed to get that hooked up onto that little tab that was sticking out. Now the issue is going to be to kind of tuck this in and get this nice and flat. So I'm going to have to be very, very careful. Yeah, have fun doing that. After cutting my finger 2 times, it's still not working. So what I've done is I've put some fishing line onto that hook, and what I'm going to do is attempt to pull it using the fishing hook, which allows me to push this all the way down, and then I'll use a plier to hold the fishing line to really tension it. Here goes nothing. And finally, after 2 hours, I finally got this on. What a nightmare. Really, really hard. I'll show you how I did it in the end. First thing that I want to do is lock it down. I really don't want to read that again. Really don't want to do that again. So there's that bolt there at the back, or screw bolt. What I ended up doing was using a hairpin, and I put a tiny little hook bit at the end, and pretty much I put the nut down and left just a little bit of space, and then after I had to use this to poke behind it and then grab the spring and then bring it up towards the tab. Serious amount of tries before I finally succeeded. And yeah, I'm definitely not doing the other lever. I think that it's the same procedure anyway for both sides. Really, I've spent 2 hours on that today easily. So yeah. Anyway, so you've got this nut now to put back down right here, and then we've got the other little bits. Now once you've tightened that nut down here, you can put some thread locking liquid on that, by the way. You'll have this ring. We have that little spacer, and there's this plastic cover, and right there you'll see there's that little part there that needs to go into the hole. There you go. And then you have this screw. I'm just tightening this down a little bit more. I feel like it was a bit loose. This, alright, that's much more solid. That's better. Have this face cover. Got this plastic barrel on this side. One on the other, smaller one anyway. And then finally we're going to have this spring to install. Hopefully that's not too hard. I've done that before though, so shouldn't be too bad. That little bit there of part sticking out for the spring is going to go into that hole. Oh, and before we put the spring, you have this the ribbon. It actually goes behind that little plastic part for the brake. So just pop that back on, and we may need to do this now. Slide that back into the hole there at the back before we install the spring, because we won't have access after. So better to do that now. And yeah, it goes there, bottom left. And then after, for the spring, it's fallen off. And now, yeah, for the spring, so the other tip is going to lodge against the part here. So you need to kind of push push against it when you're putting it on. Okay, it looks like it's good. So once you've got that, if you feel like you've got that in the correct position, we now need to put this pin, put a little bit of grease on one end, on the opposite end of where it's flat. And so the flat side needs to be on the right where one of the cables goes through there. And we can start pushing it in. Now you want to get this nicely lined up for the pin to actually go in properly. Same way I took it out, I'm going to put it back in like this using a hammer. Mine's just a little bit stuck, and I haven't got the patience for that today. There you go. So now you've done that, let's put the bolt that holds that pin in place back on. Stick that back on, and the cover. And now just got to put the cover on. Right, it's done. And just to check that it's working. Yeah. Right, well, I think that's everything. Same procedure for the other one. Hope this helped you service or work on your Ultegra 6510 shifters. And until next time, peace out.